What if you could set up an AI voice agent for your real estate business in just 15 minutes? One that follows up with leads instantly, qualifies them, and books them as appointments on your calendar while you are out focusing on closing deals. In this video, I'll show you my simplest and most effective setup to make that happen for your business today. And the best part is I'm going to show you how all of this works and how to set it up within 15 minutes. I'm going to give you all of the resources you need for free in the description down below so you can copy and paste this setup and get going with this today. So let's dive right in.
Calling from Summit Peak Realty. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm reaching out to see if you've considered selling your property or if it's something you might consider in the future.
There is a property I was looking to sell, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about what you guys do?
Absolutely, Sean. At Summit Peak Realty, we specialize in helping property owners like yourself navigate the selling process smoothly and efficiently. Could you tell me a little more about the property you're considering selling, like its type or location?
It's an apartment up in LA. It's about 500 square feet.
Thanks for sharing that, Sean. It's a 500 square foot apartment in LA. Sounds like a great property. Do you mind if I ask why you're considering selling? If it's more about upgrading, relocating, or something else.
I'm planning on moving out of state.
Gotcha. Moving out of state is definitely a big step. Would it be okay if one of our agents reached out to discuss the next steps and how we can assist you?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fun.
One of our agents will reach out soon to assist you further with selling your apartment. Thanks again for chatting with me today. If you ever have questions or need assistance, we're just a call away. Have a great day.
So at a high level, the purpose of this agent is to call prospective sellers to see if they're interested in selling their property. And if the seller is interested, it's going to ask for key information, such as their timeline for selling, if they're already working with another real estate agent, what the reason for selling is, and of course, details about the property. And then once it gets all of that information, or whatever the seller is willing to share, it will ask if that seller is interested in having a follow-up conversation with one of our live real estate agents. And then it will update all of that information into the Google Sheet in this case. And then what this is doing is it's really filtering out all the low quality leads and qualifying those who are good quality leads, getting us info so that when our live agents go and follow up with them, those leads have already been nurtured, they're warm, they've been qualified on our end, and they're high quality leads. We're not following up with every single person. So it's just going to save us a lot of time, and it's really going to make this whole process a lot smoother. And so the way this works is we start at the pre-call sequence where we have a lead list. We upload it into Google Sheet. And that lead list just contains phone numbers and first names of the prospect we're talking to. And those leads are going to be tagged as not called. And I'll show you exactly how that's set up. But at whatever cadence you want this AI agent to start doing their calls, it's going to look at the lead list, see which leads are not called, and it's going to start calling them. And during the call, on the call, it's going to gauge the interest of that prospect if they're really interested in selling their property. And if they are, great, it's going to go in to get more information, like I mentioned, on the specific home, their reason for selling, their timeline, if they're working with another agent. And then it's going to offer for us to follow up with a live agent on some sort of a follow-up conversation. And then it's going to update all of that information into Google Sheet, whether they were interested in a follow-up convo or not, or whether it was a maybe. And of course, if the prospect was not interested, it's going to politely end the call, and then it's going to update the Google Sheet accordingly. And of course, the agent is also able to handle other conversations. If the prospect takes it in another direction, asks any other random question, it's able to handle that misdirection and essentially bring it back to the end goal of understanding whether the prospect is interested or not, and if they are, seeing if they want to be followed up with. So at a high level, that's what it is. Then we're going to walk into the actual setup. So to start, we are going to use Vappy.ai to create our AI voice agent. So if you haven't used Vappy before, just click try for free. It'll have you log in or create an account. And then you can log in. The first thing you're going to want to do is connect an existing phone number if you have one, or buy a new phone number. If you don't have a phone number for this voice agent set aside already, what I would recommend you do is just go to Twilio and buy the number. So you can go over to Twilio right here, click buy number on the left, and then you can go ahead and purchase this number for $1.15 a month. It's super simple. It'll just give you the steps to configure. And then all you're going to want to do is import the phone number here in your Twilio phone number in Vappy. So you're just going to want to put the phone number, put in the SID, the token, and then just click import, and then you're all set. I have a few phone numbers in here already. And then you're going to want to click create assistant under assistants. Create an assistant. In this case, we're going to be creating a real estate outbound caller. So that's the name I'm going to give it. We're going to click create assistant. And then you have all of these steps to go, and we're just going to walk right through it. So first thing we have is our model. It's essentially what we want our voice agent to say. And so in this case, I have this guide for you here. One of the things that's great about this setup is that we're actually going to be able to use dynamic variables here in Vappy, which is not something that's dynamically built into the platform, but the way our setup works is that it is actually calling their first name in the start of the conversation, which is really good. Then we're going to come in and select our system prompt, which is essentially the main instructions for how our voice agent is going to act, what the goal of the voice agent is, what tone to use in the conversation, etc. So that is all going to be within our system prompt. We're just going to copy that and put it into our system prompt, and then we're all set. Just right here, we can choose which large language model to use. I recommend just using OpenAI, using ChatGPT 4.0. I would use the regular 4.0. A few things to keep in mind here is that this is the actual cost of the AI agent per minute. As you can imagine, this is much, much cheaper than an actual salesman. This is 10 cents a minute. And then the latency is something you want to keep in mind, because that is essentially the lag that the AI will have after any time the user says something. So that in between time is that latency. This is super important. So our knowledge base, typically when you want to build this for your business, you have a set of documents that are common FAQs that customers ask you, key information about your business, who works at your business, and just any information that you want this AI to know. You can put it into files, or I'm sure you already have them in files, and you can just upload them here into this knowledge base. And then the next thing is this temperature. What this temperature is, it determines how creative and how random the AI is going to act. And so the lower you put the temperature, the more directly it's going to follow the exact system prompts that you have laid out. The higher you put the temperature, the more it is likely to go off script. So you can imagine if you're training a salesman, if he is just someone that is sticking to the script, you can imagine his temperature is somewhere down here. If it is someone who is just saying whatever the first thing that comes to their mind, their temperature is all the way up here. So I would recommend keeping the temperature around 0.4 just to make sure that this agent is sticking to the script, but still has enough creativity to go off script if a question is asked by the prospect that's a little bit out of the ordinary. And then max tokens is essentially, a token is every word that is uttered in a response. Typically in these calls, you're not going to have 250 words said by an agent in one specific response. So this should be fine. What I recommend typically is around 300, keeping a max token of around 300, meaning that the response that your AI agent gives is not going to be more than 300 words. And then you have the ability to determine if this can detect emotion or not. I recommend turning this on. This is just part of understanding creativity. If someone is in a bad mood, it can understand that pretty well, I found, using this specific model. And so that is the first part of it. So once our model is set up, we are going to transcription. Here, we're just going to leave it the same. Basically, this is the provider. This is the AI that's going to take our audio and turn it into text, so transcribe that audio in order for our large language model to understand it, and then obviously give a response back. So that's the transcriber. We're going to leave that. Voice configuration, we can change it. That's the AI that's going to respond to the prospect on the other end. We can change this to Cartesia, 11 Labs, and any of the other providers out there. Keep in mind when you do change this, the latency of the model does change. Latency is the time gap that the AI takes to respond. And so just keep that in mind as you are changing these. Nothing else that we're going to change on additional configuration. There are a lot of settings you can change in terms of how you want the voice to sound. So just keep that in mind. If you do want to customize it more, you can definitely make it sound more your style. So for functions, we're not going to add any functions for this AI agent tutorial, but if you did want to do things like book appointments, that would be an example of a function or a couple functions that you would set up in Vappy to be able to book appointments on your calendar. So that would be a really cool way to do that. For advanced settings, we're just going to leave all of this, but just to show you what is in here, we want to turn on audio recording, which should be on by default. And this start speaking plan, there's a lot of settings in terms of how long it's going to wait before the person responds, all of these different cadences in the conversation. You can leave all of those the way that they are. The big things to pay attention to is this server messages. What I would recommend doing is just remove all of these other ones and just put end of call report. That's what's going to matter for us. And I'll explain why in a little bit. So we're just going to have end of call report there. Everything else is going to stay the same. Our analysis, this is where we're going to go back to the document and upload some of these prompts. So our summary prompt, essentially at the end of the call, it's going to get 2 to 3 sentences. It's going to take the transcription of the call and summarize it in 2 to 3 sentences. And so this is a prompt to be able to do that. Just make these pretty long in general. What this is doing is it's giving, at the end of the call, it's giving the AI 20 seconds to be able to create the summary. And so if it's a long call, you'd want to do that just to make sure that the AI doesn't time out and it doesn't leave that summary empty. So I would just extend that to as long as you can. The success evaluation prompt is going to be this prompt right here. You're an expert call evaluator. You'll be given a transcript of the call and determine whether the call was successful. So you can actually create your own scale for how you would rate the call. What I would do is just say either pass or fail. And that's essentially, it's essentially going to determine whether the call was good, whether the call was bad. And then I would also put this all the way to the end in order to give the AI enough time to really evaluate the call. And then for structured data, we're not going to put this in there because what I found is that the structured data, we're actually trying to get a lot of different data from this call. And because of that, it's not going to be able to fit in the time that we are able to give the AI to actually get this structured data. So we're just going to leave this empty for now. And then we're going to click publish. All right, so now that we've set up our voice agent, our next thing is to quickly set up this Google Sheet. And so this Google Sheet essentially has all of this information that we're going to need. So when we are inputting our leads, we're going to need to input these 3 columns. We're just going to need a phone number, first name, and the status. We're going to input the status automatically as not-called, and I'll explain why in just a minute. And then all of this is post-call analysis that we're going to be able to grab from that the AI is going to give to us after the call. So it's going to tell us whether the person is interested in selling or not, what the address is, what the property type is, home, condo, apartment, if they're willing to let us follow up with them with a live agent, and what time that follow-up is going to happen, any additional notes from the call. And then the call summary is actually coming from this part right here, where this prompt that we put in, you're an expert note taker. It's going to get the transcript of the call, give a 2 to 3 sentence summary, and that is going to come in right here. Then our transcript is going to come in as well. And then we're going to have an actual recording of the call. And so I'll show you an example once we do our demo. So once you've set up your Google Sheet, at this point you have your voice agent, you have your Excel sheet. The way that you connect these things together to send data back and forth is to use some sort of an automation software like make.com. That's what we're going to use in this case. So we are going to go to make.com. You're going to make an account or log in. And then we are going to go here. You can import the blueprints. What you're going to do, the files that I've shared with you are essentially these 2 files that I'm sharing right here in these 2 tabs. You're just going to click import blueprint, choose a file, and then you can go ahead and import this blueprint. And so what this workflow does is anytime you add a new row that is not called, so that hasn't been called yet, if their status in column C is not called, then it's going to trigger this workflow. And so every workflow has a trigger. In this case, the trigger I've set is just going to run every 15 minutes. But if you want to have more advanced scheduling, let's say you want this AI agent to check all the leads that haven't been called and start making their calls at 9 a.m. on Monday, then you can easily do that using these settings right here. But for now, we're just going to leave it. And then what you're going to want to do when you import this blueprint, you're going to want to make these few changes. So you're going to want to connect your specific Google account. So you're just going to want to click add, and then it'll have you log into your Google account, and then you can specify which Google Drive and then the Google Sheet, and you can go in and input that specific information. All of this you can just leave the way that it is. Then you're going to go in. We have a few pieces of information from VAPI that we need to get in order to make this workflow really work. And so we have our assistant ID. So when we actually created our agent, it gave us an assistant ID. So we just have to copy that assistant ID and then bring that over here, copy that. And then we have our API key, which I don't want to click into for security reasons, but I will show you where to get that in VAPI. You're just going to go here and you're just going to click copy, and then you're going to go, I think this one, you're going to go back here, click it, and then paste. And then we're going to get our phone number ID as well. And so the phone number ID, you're just going to go to phone numbers, and then it's going to be phone number ID, one of these phone numbers that you just click copy and then bring back here. Then we have basically our API request. So once we have all of this information from VAPI, we're going to make a simple API request. You're not going to have to edit this at all. This is already fine the way it is. And what this is going to do is it's going to set the specific variables, these dynamic variables for the call. And so in our case, the only dynamic variables we're going to pass is first name and the current date and time. Now you can definitely add more dynamic information if you'd like. You can format this, but for the purpose of this, if you just want to get it set up really quickly, I would recommend just leaving this the way that it is, because this is already going to work perfectly fine. The VAPI agent is going to say the person's first name at the beginning of the call. And so if you see hi first name, that's already going to be passed into the VAPI agent. That's essentially what these steps are doing, is it's taking the information from the Google Sheet and setting those variables dynamically within the VAPI agent. Once you have determine that your dynamic variables are okay. This workflow is completely set. You don't have to do any changes on this. Then when you download all of the files, you're going to get this workflow as well. Just real quick, I'm going to show you this workflow. Essentially what this is doing is it's doing our post-call analysis, like I mentioned. So in order to make this work, when you download this blueprint, you're going to have this custom webhook right here. And this is what's going to need to connect to your VAPI agent. And so what you're going to do is you're going to have to add a new webhook. So what you do is you click add, you just name it like real estate. I just did real estate outbound caller. You can name it anything like that. And then you just click save and it will just give you this URL. So all you gotta do is copy that address to clipboard. I think it did copy. And then we're gonna go here and put it in our server URL. And so what this is saying is server URL is a specific, at this specific time, when this function runs, when this end of call report essentially runs at the end of every call, it's going to call this webhook. So the way that this actually works is whenever you put in a new row that is not called, it is going to find your VAPI agent with a specific phone number that you have attached. And then it's going to send a request to that VAPI agent, call it, say, hey, I want to send this request. I want to make this call. It's going to get the dynamic variables that we have set, aka just the first name and the time. And then it is going to send a post request to that VAPI agent to say, hey, all right, call this person. So to show how this is working, I'm just going to quickly show you a demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a phone number that I can call and I can show you how this works. So as soon as I put in this in the Excel sheet, if this was actually running currently, it would work. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this workflow and then you're going to be able to see the call. So it's running, and then as soon as it runs, which it is right now.
This is Sarah calling from Summit Peak Realty. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm reaching out to see if you've considered selling your property or if it might be something you'd consider in the future. Have you given it any thought?
There is a condo I have that I am looking to sell.
That's great to hear, Sean. Could you tell me a little more about your property, like the type and location?
It's a 3-bedroom condo out in Long Beach, California.
Thank you for sharing that, Sean. Long Beach is a fantastic area. Could you tell me a bit more about your condo? For example, how many bedrooms and bathrooms does it have?
It's about 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms.
That sounds like a lovely condo, Sean. Thank you for sharing those details. One of our agents will reach out soon to assist you further with the selling process. Thank you for your time today, and have a great day.
So as you saw, this workflow worked because it essentially called me at the end of this workflow. And now what we have in our other workflow is essentially the post-call analysis. And so this runs at the end of the call. So if you remember, the way that we set up our VAPI agent is we had this advanced setup to call a server message. So at the end of every call, it's going to run an end of call report. But what this is essentially showing is all of the information that came as a result of that call. And so here we have the exact transcript. You can go and you can listen to this call itself.
Hi, Sean. This is Sarah calling from Summit.
Yeah, don't need to listen to that, but there it is. Additional notes, we don't have additional notes. And the property type is a condo, Long Beach. That is great. And so we have all of this info that we can go and do analysis on. If the agent, we can listen to the transcript, if the agent didn't do exactly what we wanted. In that case, it didn't, ask if I was looking to follow up, which it should have. So we can go back, change the prompt, and then come back and fix that. So that's essentially how this works. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that was helpful. I would recommend just copying all of the files. So the 2 workflows, the Google Sheet and the Google Doc with all of the system prompts that you can just copy and paste over. And then you can customize all of this to your liking, to your company, and then you're good to go. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.